Cool. Well, thank you. I'm delighted to talk with you. Um, should we just jump in here?
Yeah,
The
let's do it.
first question. Okay, so what's the best part of being a guide?
For me, the best part of being a guide is seeing somebody else reach their goals that they probably didn't think they could do without some support or some help. So I think that's always most satisfying is seeing that either somebody having that aha moment of like, oh my God, like I just realized I can do this, or
Yeah,
everything clicking for them or being able to help facilitate that.
cool. And is that why you do the work, that seeing that happen, or is there something, something else?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
I would say 100% of why I do what I do is because I love seeing other women empowered getting outdoors. And a lot of times, there's a lot of barriers, and sometimes the biggest barrier is just fear or like don't not wanting to do it by yourself. And so being able to provide environments and retreats and trips where women can come
yeah,
and have their own journey, but do it in like the safety of a group and like with a guide, and I think is really great. And I think guides, not only are they there for like safety and all that kind of stuff, but there's also just generally like local knowledge that they have that they are sharing along the way. So
yeah.
I think the experience is just so much richer in a lot of ways when you have the opportunity to go out with a guide, especially if it's a local guide.
That's so cool. So yeah, you're giving and you're also getting, and then there's this crazy alchemy
Yeah,
of joy and
yeah,
stoke.
totally.
Yeah. All right.
So I was
So
I was asked once like, what makes you happy? And I'm like, other people being happy. And I was like, oh God, like
yeah,
And in some ways, like I'm sure a therapist would be like,
yeah.
you should focus on what makes you happy. And I'm like, but genuinely, like
Mm.
my joy comes from seeing other people like succeed in their happiness and like loving something that I also love so much.
I mean, as a parent, I can relate to that, right? Is just
Yeah,
like seeing them on their first mountain bike trail and you're like, oh, this is so cool, like as their mind is blown. So yeah, that's cool. I love that. Okay, can I flip it and like what's the worst part of being a guide?
the responsibility of being a guy.
Yeah, the same answer.
Yes,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
responsibility of everyone's safety
yeah,
and happiness. Like
yeah,
I think the worst part is like worrying that somebody isn't going to have a good time, or that something will happen, or
yeah.
that the experience won't live up to their expectation.
What's a case, what's your favorite, most recent successful trip? Flipping it back the other way, like you blew somebody's mind. What's a thumbnail sketch of what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I would say we recently this past summer we did the Tour de Mont Blanc, which is like a bucket list trip, and it's big. It's like it's day after day hiking anywhere from 8 to 10 plus miles up and over mountain passes. And we had super challenging weather. We had, people getting sick. It was like everything that could have been thrown at us logistically was
Yeah,
thrown at us. And I think at the end of the day, I think there were some people who came into it like there's two people who come to mind specifically. One came into it total badass. Like this woman is, you know, she does she's in her 60s. She does parkour. She does aerial. She does like all of these things. And she's like, but I'm not a hiker. And the whole trip she kept saying like, but I'm super nervous because I'm not a hiker, and you all are hikers, and I'm not a hiker. And she's a ski instructor, and we're all like, no, you are a hiker. Like you're here and you're hiking. You are a hiker. So just and kind of seeing that, her that self doubt at the beginning of the trip of like, well, I'm not a like I'm not a hiker, so maybe this trip isn't for me, kind of come into her own and realize like she is a hiker, and all of the women being like, you are a hiker, you're doing this thing. So that was really great. And then we had another person who, the trip was challenging for her because she had trained and prepared for it but didn't have a lot of hills where she lived.
right.
And so it's one thing to hike 10 miles, it's another thing to hike 10 miles with a mountain pass in the middle.
Yeah,
And so just hearing her every day say like, today's my Everest.
yeah,
Well, I thought yesterday was my Everest. Today's my Everest, and just that feeling of accomplishment of what she was able to do, and what her body was able to sustain, and and the fact that she was slower, but like she got it done. And so I think moments like that where people realize like how much they're capable of. Um, yeah,
so cool.
Yeah.
I feel like I sort of expected you to say something. Well, you started off with the Chamonix like setting, and I was like, yeah, that would be my ideal trip too. But then you took it to like, oh no, there was this crux, and like it actually wasn't perfect the whole way through. And I find that so interesting just about adventures in general, right? Like I love type two fun. I love type one fun, but type two fun is just it's because you come through that down
Yeah.
point. And so it's yeah, I just love that your favorite trip was actually one that you struggled on and it was hard because that would be
Totally.
so quintessential.
Totally. And I think, it's interesting because we have, so in all of our trips that we do, we also have local guides, and we feel like that's really important. So, we have an adventurous trip leader who goes with a group. And we do a lot of that like work, like getting women ready and like being with them in the journey up to the trip. And then there's somebody who goes with them on the trip. But then when we get to our destination, we have the local guides.
Yeah,
And as all of these things are happening, as people are getting sick and the weather, snow and rain and like all these things are coming, I'm just looking at our guide, my brain is spinning, and she just looks at me and she goes, no worries, Saveria. She goes, and she didn't say no worries because she's friends, but she goes, no, no. She goes, no problems, just solutions. We have only solutions. And literally, that is like my new mantra of life right now.
yeah,
Like, no problems, just solutions.
yeah,
And I think as a guide, like you do, like, I mean, and I'm of the mindset that you always have plan A, B, and C,
yeah,
right? Like, you always have that. But when it seems like plan A, B, and C have already like flown out the window, and now you're looking for D, E, and F, and you're just like, oh my God, what now?
yeah,
Just that reminder that there's solutions. There's a solution to every problem.
yeah.
So, like, don't waste your time on the problem. Just figure out what the solution is.
So cool. So cool. I love that.
And also, because, like, there's somebody taking care of those solutions, for the most part, the people who are on the trip, like, they know and, like, they're part of it, but so much of their brain and energy is not focused on those things. Like, right? They're still just focused on the fact that the weather's kind of shitty or that the hike is kind of hard. Like, they have one thing that they get to focus on,
Yeah.
whereas the guides can take care of all those other things.